Perfect. Perfect. Okay. It's interesting. We're missing a whole bunch of people, huh? But David, you're here. Those that are watching online, I don't know, maybe Michael and Kim are watching online. Michael and Kim, we're missing you. And we're missing Bruce. Bruce, I don't know if you're watching. Bruce having an issue with his car, I think. Who else is missing? But we have Adam. We're missing Shlomo, but Adam and Lindsay are here. So we're glad you're here. Hopefully new regulars. Say hi to Adam and Lindsay. And Mikael is joining us and watching. So shalom. How are you, Mikael? If you're watching, say hi so I can see who's on so we can say hi back. Perfect. I'll take it. Thank you very much. God bless you. Yeah, here's going to be good, actually. Hello, Kim. Okay, Kim is on. Okay, ready? So I know people are watching. Hello, shalom, shalom, Mikael. Art is watching us on Chabad.org, so I know that we got the crowd. Okay, we got our regulars. Even if the room is a little bit emptier than usual, but that's good because we're not alone. You guys will have to just make up in energy. It's left heavy. Yeah, everyone's on this side of the room too, all right? I don't know why. Robert's the only one on this side. Okay, it's okay. You have to represent. You got a lot to represent. It's very lopsided. But it's okay. Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight's class is in the memory of Yitzchak Tzvi and Yosef Yeshama. Should have an elevation. Good evening, everyone that's watching online. A lot of you online. Hello, Ravit. Okay, so tonight we're going to be talking about the ancient city of Sedom. We're going to talk about the wickedness, the cruelty, the selfishness of this. It's almost like a mythical city, Sedom. It has such a reputation of its own, the city of Sedom. But we're going to discover, first of all, that it's not a mythical, Greek legend of old, but Sedom was an actual, real city that existed with real people and real laws, just like the beautiful city of Coral Springs. Well, the laws are not like Coral Springs, but I'm saying it's a real city with real people. And our goal, though, tonight is not just to shudder and say, oy vey, they were pretty wicked people back then, but our real goal is to understand how Sedom can exist within each one of us, how the mindset of the people of Sedom can permeate into our own psyches, into our own hearts, and how we have the power to fix that, of course. Okay, so let us begin with a little bit of a portrait of the city of Sedom. And again, to all of you just joining us, Shira, how are you? And Alice, how are you? And everyone else that's watching, how are you? I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to start reading from this week's Torah reading from Bereshis, chapter 13, verse number 10. Let me first make a bracha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol nהיה b'dvaro. So we're going to read as follows. If you remember the story, this week's story, Avram is sent by God to a faraway land. He travels together with his nephew Lot. Should have done before I start to read. And basically, God makes Abraham exceedingly wealthy. Becomes very, very wealthy. And what happens? The shepherds of Lot begin to fight with the shepherds of Abraham. And it says they couldn't live together anymore. The reason is Avram's shepherds were very careful not to let their sheep graze in someone else's land. And Lot's shepherds were not so careful. They said that the whole land will one day eventually be Lot's because God promised the land to Abraham. But Abraham has, at that point in the story, he had no biological children. So who will inherit Lot? Who will inherit Abraham? His nephew Lot. So they said the land will eventually be ours, and they were not careful, and there was fights. And eventually, Abraham says to Lot, we cannot live together. You choose. If you go to the right, I'll go to the left. If you go to the left, I'll go. You choose. So what happens, and how we come to the verses that we're going to read to describe the city that Lot would choose to be his new residence. And should I make a comment about all the New York Jews that are thinking moving to Florida, moving south? There's going to be elections. There's big elections coming up in New York, in case you don't know, in case you're living under a rock. And a lot of Jews, not only Jews, a lot of people, a lot of jokes now about moving to Florida. But I'll stop over there because we don't get into politics. We have here to learn Torah. So, verse number 10. Vayisa Lot es einav. Lot lifted up his eyes, and he saw the entire plain of the Jordan, that it was entirely watered before the Lord destroyed Sedom and the Gomorrah. Means at that point it was a beautiful, luscious, fertile place, like the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt. What's the land of Egypt? Had the Nile that constantly irrigated. There was never a time of drought in Egypt. It was always had a source of water. On the way as you come to Tzoar, and Lot chose for himself the entire plain of the Jordan. And Lot journeyed from the east, leaving his uncle Avraham, and they separated one man from his brother. Avram dwelt in the land of Canaan, and Lot dwelt in the cities of the plain, and pitched his tent until Sedom. Get ready for this next verse. The Anshe Sedom Ra'im v'chatoyim laHashem ma'od. And the people of Sedom were wicked and sinful to the Lord ma'od. Ma'od in Hebrew means very much, or as they translate here, exceedingly. They weren't just wicked. They were like really, exceedingly, terribly wicked. Okay, so we have over here already two descriptions of the city of Sedom. Number one, the people of Sedom are living in an extremely wealthy place. It's a land that's very fertile. It's a land that everything is growing. It's watered. It's an entirely watered land. It was a rich place. It was a place of beauty, a place of abundance, a very, very beautiful place. And yet, at the same time that we are reading about this place of affluence, of wealth, of beauty, we also are told that it's an exceedingly wicked city. It's not a good place. And the Medrash and the Gemara in Sanhedrin fill in some of the terrible details that describe indeed how wicked, how cruel were these people that enacted laws to, so to say, protect their wealth. They felt they had a city meeting, they had their council meetings, and they had their elections, and they chose that they want to have laws that will protect the city from being overrun by beggars and paupers that will come and ruin the beauty. Here in Coral Springs, they don't let people panhandle on the streets because it takes away from the beauty of the city. Other cities you'll see. Here you don't see it. The city doesn't allow it. They come and they move them. And so therefore, despite the wealth of the city, the laws prevented anyone to give charity or to do any hospitality. Kindness was outlawed in the city. Can you imagine that? It was outlawed. It was a crime to commit the sin, the crime of hospitality, of having people in your home. And the Gemara in Sanhedrin, page 109, I'm not going to read it inside, but I'll tell you some of the crazy stories that they made a law. You were not allowed to feed beggars. You were not allowed to feed beggars. And so what happened? There was a young girl who some identify as the daughter of Lot. Her name was Pelonis. The Talmud doesn't say who she was. I think her name was Pelonis. And she had this trait of, I guess, her great uncle Avram. She couldn't see a beggar suffering and starving in hunger. And so every day when she would go to the well to go and collect water, she would secretly hide some food, some bread in the pail, and she would leave it for this beggar. A few weeks go by, and the beggar hasn't died. So the people start getting curious. How is it possible that this beggar is still alive? If no one's feeding him, he would have died by now. So obviously someone is breaking the law. Someone is illegally feeding this poor person and allowing the unbeauty of a poor person to, so to say, ruin the glory and the peace of our neighborhood. So they set up spies to check, to watch, and sure enough, they found that this girl was the one that was secretly feeding him. And you know what they did? The Talmud says they smeared her body in honey, and they left her on the rooftop to be stung to death by the bees. Because she was so sweet like honey, by giving food to this poor beggar, in their judicial mind, in their corrupt minds, the just treatment of her was to completely smear her naked body in honey and leave her to be stung to death by the bees. Now the Medrash says that they burnt her alive. I'm not sure if that's worse or better than being stung to death by bees. I'm not sure which is more horrific. And before she died, she cried out to God for justice. And she said, she was crying out to God. We'll get to that verse in a minute. And God heard her cry. And so to say, the Gemara says this was the final cry that made God decide to destroy the city. But I'm going to get back to that soon. So let me get carried away yet. There was another law the Talmud tells us about the beds in the city of Sedom. And all of you watching from all over the world, hello. And they didn't allow people to sleep there. So they had beds for visitors. And this bed, it wasn't like it's like orthopedic. What's it called? What's the fancy mattresses? Posturepedic, right? What's the posturepedic? Whatever. You choose your comfort level, and they had no sleep number. Instead, what they would do is they would stretch the guest to make the guest fit into the bed. So if the guest was too tall, they would cut off his feet out of kindness, so he should fit on the bed. If he was too short, they would tie him to the edge and stretch his body to allow, like on the rack, a torture that he should fit. So everyone became afraid to go and sleep. By the way, if you ever heard today, there's an expression, I didn't know this till today when I was preparing my notes. There's something called the Procrustean bed. You ever heard that expression? No one here heard of it? Procrustean bed is a method of forcing conformity through arbitrary and often violent means. It's named after a bandit whose name was Procrustes, who would stretch or amputate his victims to fit the size of his bed. Now, this is based on Greek mythology, because this Procrustes was a notorious figure in Greek mythology who would make people sleep on his iron bed and cut them or stretch them to fit the size of his bed. And ultimately, he met his own end at the hands of the hero Theseus, who used Procrustes' own method against him, forcing him to fit into his own bed. Anyway, that's the Greek mythology. But guess what, my friends? There ain't no original Greek mythology. It's all stolen straight from our Medrash, describing how the people of Sedom behaved and how they would force people into their beds. But this is used till today. Today, in very sophisticated English, when you want to describe a metaphor for forcing everyone into a one-size-fits-all solution, like in schools, right? Where they dump every kid into the same class. Doesn't make a difference if your learning style is audio or visual or this way or that way. If you're a frontal learner, if you're a hands-on learner, you all get dumped into the same room with the same teacher. That's called a Procrustean bed model of. It's a real word. I didn't make it up. I didn't even know it until today, but it's a real word. And it comes from this behavior of the people of Sedom. Not only that, the Medrash also tells us a story that Elazar, the servant of Avram, was once traveling through the city of Sedom. And it came dark, he had to sleep there, but he already knew the stories of Sedom. He knew he didn't want to sleep there. So they offered him a bed. So he said that ever since my mother died, I made an oath not to sleep in the bed ever again. I'll be fine sleeping on the street because I made an oath after my mother died. And that was how he saved his own life. Okay. In addition, the Gemara tells us another story about the legal methods and the behavior of the people in the town that they would want to steal. They would see someone had a thing of goods, came with a bucket of whatever. Each person would come and take one pea or one vegetable out of the bucket, out of the cart. No one would steal from it. Everyone would just take one. And he would turn around. Next thing you know, it's all gone. And everyone would say, I just took one little thing. I didn't take, can't hold me liable. I just took one. And he'd try and build a house. Each person would come and just take one brick. Someone to move into town and build a house in their town without permission. Everyone will come and steal one brick of the house. He builds a house, comes the next day, every brick. No one stole it. I didn't steal the house. I just took one brick. Not enough to make me legally liable. It's under, it's considered a misdemeanor. It's not a felony under $1,000. And the Talmud says, I'm not sure if it's literal, if it's a euphemism, that there were 4 judges in Sedom. Their names were Shakrai. Who here speaks Hebrew? You speak a little Hebrew? Shakrai, from the word sheker, liar. Shakruai, which means like the assistant liar, the liar junior. Kazvai, kazav is also false, lies, falsehood. And Mazladina, the perverter of justice. That was the names of these 4 judges in the city of Sedom. And their rulings were perversions of justice. So if someone injured his neighbor, and he would come to the court and say, I wish I was injured, you know what the judge would say? Oh, he made you bleed? Pay him for having done bloodletting for you. Bloodletting was an ancient form of medicine where if you were sick, the assumption back then was the reason why you're sick is because you have bad blood. So you have to have the blood drawn from you. They use leeches or cups to suck the bad blood out of your body. So if David would go and hit Robert, and Robert come to the judge and say, Saul, you're the judge, Saul, what should he owes me damages for hitting me. The judge would say, oh, he let your blood. He actually helped you. He gave you a medical treatment. Pay him. That'd be Saul's judgment. Pay David for the medical treatment that you received. So the Medrash also said when Eliezer came to town, someone started to beat him up because he was a guest, a traveler through the city. So he went to the court to go complain. And the judge says, oh, he made you bleed. You owe him money for bloodletting. So what did Eliezer do? He went to the judge and he punched the judge. So the judge started bleeding. So he said to the judge, now you owe me money. So I'll tell you what, you can pay him directly and leave me out of it. But there's a story in the Medrash. Now, obviously, these are not like logical laws. But in Sedom, what I'm describing to you was the law of the land. And this is a very, very important point to internalize. And I'm going to spend 2 minutes on this. We think of wicked people as being like, I don't know, thugs that you wouldn't want to meet in a dark alley. That's what we think of, like of a robber, someone scary looking with a gun, whatever. And yet these bad people of the city of Sedom were not brutes. They weren't, full of tattoos or whatever stereotype you would imagine a bad guy, so to say, would look like. Not that to make you a bad guy, but I'm saying like the stereotype of how you think a bad guy looks. They didn't look like that. They looked like a highly respected, cultured, sophisticated group of people. And if you come to the city of Sedom, they would have their tea, or I don't know if they had tea. They'll get together and to go smoke cigars, or I don't know, whatever their pastime was. And they were seemingly nice people. They were polite to each other. They were friends with each other, just didn't let anybody else in. And if someone came and needed help, they had legal laws in place to prevent what they considered in their mind to be the perfect utopian society, but they didn't want being ruined by outside, immigrants and beggars, and they kept to themselves. I remind you of a story I've said before, that Tivus Hashem, which is a kids publication in New York in the 80s, they have a monthly publication. I remember as a kid they had called the Mashiach Times, the Spy, and different stories. So at one point when they first started, they were going to have a weekly comic of the good guy and the bad guy, they called him the Spy, whatever. But before they had the character in the comic, they hired a very, very professional, well-known comic artist to make this weekly comic. And they made the different characters of the comic. And the Yetzer Hara in the comic looked like a scary, he looked like the Yetzer Hara. He looked like the evil inclination. Let me just be clear for those that are, you have the evil inclination, you have the good inclination. So in the comic, there were characters. The good guy, the good voice, the bad voice, they were cartoon images in this child publication. When they made all the characters, they sent into the Rebbe like a painting, so to say, a picture of all the different characters and the different, like the first week, what the comic would look like. Now listen to this. And the genius of the Rebbe, who understood human nature. So when they drew the picture, they made the character of the Yetzer Hara, the evil voice inside us, they made him looking evil. So on his face, he had a big scar. He looked scary. He looked like a scary guy with a big scar going down his cheek. And the Rebbe said they should take the scar away and not make him look so bad, because children shouldn't think that evil looks evil. Evil very often can look very cultured and very respectable and very honorable and can have very complex and sophisticated sounding ways of justifying and rationalizing the selfish, evil behavior, but it has a justification. It can rationalize it in very, very beautiful, sophisticated sounding words, big words, with a lot of letters. And therefore, the Rebbe says, don't let a child think that evil looks like a scary looking guy. Sometimes the greatest evil looks very nice. It's a candy. It's, it looks enticing. It looks pleasurable. It looks enjoyable. Those can sometimes be the greatest threats. And so these people of Sedom, they didn't look like a rough society. They didn't look like the hood. They looked like, an upper class gated community with very strict HOA laws to protect they didn't care about the length of the grass. They had the HOA to protect the integrity of their environment. Make sure no beggars, God forbid, got in. Make sure that everyone stole equally so that no one person stole everything. Everyone took one piece. So everyone was stealing, but no one was liable for stealing because everyone did it. That was a society. And they had ways of justifying and rationalizing how this behavior is justified and how it makes sense. Mm-hmm. So it's worth asking ourselves a question. How did Sedom get to that place? How did Sedom reach a place where normal, intellectual, human, successful people create such a monstrous culture where they justify burning a girl alive or covering in honey and letting the bee sting her to death as a punishment for feeding a hungry person? Where they justify having on law. I talked about this a little bit last week, and that's part of why we did this class. I talked about this last week. It wasn't just that they didn't like guests. They created a legal system that legally didn't allow guests. It wasn't like I'm not in the mood of having you as my guest. They created a system that justified it, that institutionalized. That's what I'm looking for. They institutionalized in a public way what today we would understand is completely morally corrupt, selfish, disgusting behavior. And they justified it. So before I answer the question, how do they get there? Let's first finish the story. So what does God do to these people of Sedom? So the Torah tells us, it's already going to be next week's Torah reading, the end of the story, when God sends 3 angels. We're going to read that next week, right? God sends 3 angels to come to Avram. One comes to heal Avraham from the circumcision, correct. One comes to, you're jumping ahead. Yeah, who's the other one? One comes to tell them the good news. They're going to have a baby. Yeah. And one comes and says, we're going to destroy the city of Sedom. And God comes to destroy the city. But God says, I can't destroy the city of Sedom without telling Avram. This is going to be his land one day. And Avram's a very righteous, beautiful person. So I can't not tell him what I plan to do. And so God comes to Avraham, and God tells Avraham that I'm going to destroy the city of Sedom. Actually, let me just, before God decides to do it, he says, here, look at this verse, Genesis chapter 18, verse 20 and verse 21. Yomer Hashem, the Lord said, because the cry of Sedom and Gomorrah is so great, and because their sin is very grievous, I will go down now and see whether they have acted altogether according to its cry, which has come to me, and if not, I will know. I don't want to spend too much time on this verse, even though there's what to talk about, because I want to get to what I really want to talk about, which is the selfishness of the city. But here we see that God says the cry that came to me is too great to ignore it anymore. What was that cry? Some say it was a cry of that girl that was being stung to death on the rooftop. The cry of the poor people that were mercilessly beaten and humiliated and tortured when they happened by mistake to travel through the city. There was no Google alert, stay away. No travel reviews, with like 1-star ratings, like stay away from Sedom. They don't treat you very well. People didn't know that. They kind of figured out the hard way. And they didn't let anyone in. And there were all these people that were killed and tortured and suffered in this town. And eventually God says, the cry is too great. I must destroy, uproot the city. Not just punish the city, but similar to what God did by the flood. When the world had also become so corrupt, God said this world is not redeemable. The corruption of the flood was so bad, God said the only solution is destroy the world and start again. And the exact same thing, this is what I wanted to point out, is that this is exactly what happened with the people of Sedom. They reached a point where they become so wicked, so evil, that God says this is not a nation or a city, but cities. It was actually 5 cities that are redeemable. The only solution for this place is to be destroyed. That's very strong. To be in such a level where God says, let me see if the cry is true. If this is the truth, if they are really as bad as it sounds, the only solution is to upturn the city. And when God comes and tells Avraham, I'm going to destroy the city, and Avraham, yes, Sedom and Gomorrah is the same way. And yes, look at Nazi Germany, which is culture. I actually wanted to say that, yes, Nazi Germany is a perfect example of people that are refined, cultured, etc., that were of the worst form of wickedness. We're going to talk about that. So God comes to Avram and says to Avram, I'm going to destroy the city. And what does Avram do? Who knows the story? What does Avram do? He starts to negotiate. He says, God, if there's even 50 righteous people, because there was 5 cities, don't destroy the cities. And God said, if there be 50 righteous men, their merit to be enough to give the city a chance to be fixed and to be saved. But there isn't even 50 righteous people. So Avram says to God, maybe there's 40 righteous people. You can save 4 of the cities. And God says, there isn't even 40 righteous people. So then they say, okay, maybe if there's 30 righteous men, save at least 3 of the cities. And God says there isn't even 30 righteous people. So Avram says, what about 20 righteous people? God says there isn't even 20. What about 10? And we're talking not about a small little city. We're talking about a metropolis of 5 cities. Sedom was, as I already said, it was a huge metropolis. It was a central area, very, very wealthy. A lot of economy, a lot of business went through Sedom. A lot of stuff growing there. It's right in the middle of the land. It's like the thing where the Dead Sea is now. If you're going down south to Egypt and all that, you have to go through that area. People were always going there. It's a big area. And God says to Abraham, there is not even 10 righteous people in the entire metropolis of Sedom. And even Abraham has to admit, and Abraham was a man of tremendous love, who would do anything to justify kindness. Even Abraham was forced to admit that indeed these people have become so wicked, so corrupted, so unredeemably evil that they could not be saved, and Abraham had to agree with God that they had to be destroyed. It's pretty crazy. And I don't get too much into the story, but just briefly, so what happens, the angels come, and when the angels come to the city to destroy the city, one angel comes to destroy the city, the other one comes to save Lot and his wife and his daughters. Now Lot had 4 daughters. 2 were already married. The son-in-laws didn't want to go. The 2 that were not married, they take with them in the middle of the night. They run out of the city. Oh, before that, they're sitting in the house and they're talking, and the angels are trying to convince Lot to leave the city. And all of a sudden, a mob surrounds the house. Why does a mob surround the house? Because Lot's wife, even though she was married to Lot, I'm jumping a little bit. Lot saw these 2 strangers come to the city. It was actually the night of Pesach. And Lot saw these 2 people come to the city, and Lot told them, come to my house. It was a Seder night. I'm going to feed you. But go in a roundabout way. Don't let anyone see that you came. Don't wash the sand off your feet. So if someone comes, look like you just came a minute before, and I'll feed you. When Lot comes home and tells his wife, we're going to have guests for dinner, Lot's wife was very angry. But she couldn't argue with her husband. So what does she do? She says that they have no more salt. They didn't have salt, or she pretended they didn't have salt. So she went to a neighbor to go borrow salt for the guests that had come to her house. Now, there's 2 parts of the story. She was upset about it. How does she express it? By going and asking for salt. It's actually a lot about, I didn't prepare about this, but I'm not going to talk about it now. She asked for salt. The neighbors got wind that she needs salt. They didn't want to give her salt, but they knew she had guests. So they told the other neighbors and the other neighbors, because no one would give her salt. So she would go around to a bunch of houses to ask for salt. And before long, the word gets out in town, Lot is breaking the law. Can you imagine? He's breaking the law. He's a criminal. He's hosting guests in his home. We need to go take care of this once and for all. Protect the integrity of our city. And what do? The mob comes and surrounds the house, and they start screaming and shouting. They want the 2 men to be brought out to them to be raped, to be sexually violated, and to be killed. Now, Lot, it's not clear if he understood that they were angels or not, but Lot understood he had a moral obligation to the guests that he had brought under the roof of his house. So Lot says something ridiculously stupid that the Talmud says is a wrong thing to say. You know what Lot says? Take my daughters instead. Take my daughters instead. He's trying to sort of say, feed his daughters to the frenzied mob outside to protect his guests, which is obviously a terrible, terrible thing to happen. And the angels do a miracle. The mob outside becomes blinded. He pulls Lot back inside. The angels pull Lot back inside. And they say, we have to leave now before the sun goes up. And they escape the city. And as they're escaping the city, they said, don't look back. Don't look back at the destruction of the city that you don't really deserve to be saved from. You're only being saved to the merit of your uncle Abraham. And as they're escaping, she couldn't not look back, which really means that she felt a yearning for maybe next week's class will be on Lot's wife. Maybe next week we'll talk about Lot's wife because it's fascinating. This understanding why she looked back is a beautiful thing. I'm not going to talk about it right now. She looks back. She turns to a pillar of salt. Come back next week, same time, same place. Now, what I want to talk about today is how is it possible for a city to become so wicked that it had to be destroyed? Not only that, the Talmud tells us, that today you have a legal term in the Talmud. When someone acts in a selfish way, where they don't want to share, be kind to someone. Look at text number 4. I'm going to go out of order for a second. Where they don't want to share, where they don't want to help someone else. You know what the Talmud says? In any case where there's a behavior that embodies a trait of Sedom, the court compels a person not to act in that manner. Meaning, suppose you have a well in your house, in your property. Now, could a well give water to you and your next door neighbor? Of course, it's a well. It's not like your water that you're carrying from the river. It's a well. And you decide, I don't let my neighbor come into my property to take water from the well. Now, legally, you're entitled to say, you can't come into my property. It's my property, right? And yet, even though you're legally entitled to make the argument that it's my property, I don't let you to my property, since there's no loss to me by letting you into my property, the only reason I wouldn't do it is because I'm a person like Sedom, a selfish, mean person. The rabbis say that the court has the authority that if they see that there's no loss to the person, it's just a meanness, that I don't want to help you, even though I will not lose out by helping you, that is considered the midah of Sedom, the attribute of Sedom. We break, so to say, the midah, the attribute of Sedom, and we force this person to allow the next door neighbor to walk into the property to take water from the well, even though it means that they're trespassing on their property. Because there's no loss to you, and they're getting the water that they can't get otherwise. So this attribute of Sedom becomes almost like an icon in rabbinic literature of the worst kind of selfishness, where I don't want to let you benefit even though I lose nothing. Not like where I have to give up something to help you. I lose nothing by helping you. I'm not allowed to do it. So we understand already a little bit that once the rich stop helping the poor, what do we see over here? They've already signed their own death warrant. The moment that this city became so morally corrupt that it couldn't allow itself to help people in need is when God said this city no longer deserves to exist. The city no longer deserves to exist. There's no redemption. Its only hope is to be overturned, rain upon the sulfur, destroy it, obliterate it, and unlike the flood, will start again. Nothing would ever grow in that place ever again. Today, where the Dead Sea is all the salt from Sedom. There's nothing living there. There's no life there. There's even, I'm going to talk about this next week, the pillar of salt. We're going to talk about it next week. So, my friends, what we really need to do today is to understand the emotional mindset of selfishness that allows a person to become so cold and careless and callous to the needs of other people around them that they become like the city of Sedom. That's what we need to understand. And then we can understand how to deal with him. So, let us learn the Mishnah. You ready to learn the Mishnah? Pirkei Avos, Ethics of Our Fathers, Chapter 5, Mishnah number 10. Says the Mishnah as follows. Arba midos ba'adam. There are 4 character types among people. One who says, shali shali, v'shalach shalach. Someone who says, what's mine is mine, what's yours is yours. Zumida beinanis. This is a regular trait. V'yesh omrim. Pay attention to the next word I'm about to say. And some say, this is the attribute of Sedom. Let me finish the mission, then we'll explain. One who says, what's mine is yours, and what's yours is mine, is an ignorant person. One who says, shali shalach v'shalach shalach chassid. Someone who says, what's mine is yours, and what's yours is a chassid. And someone who says, shalach shali v'shali shali, what's yours is mine, and what's mine is mine, is a rasha, is a wicked person. So, what do we have over here? At first glance, we have 4 character traits. You have what's mine is mine, and what's yours is yours. That would seem to be normal. No, normal. You would seem, that's the one opinion. What's mine is mine. What's mine is mine. What's yours is yours. So one rabbi says this is the regular behavior. That's the median trait. Mida beinanis, like the average person. But some say that's considered Sedom. I'll go back to that. The next character trait is what's mine is yours, what's yours is mine. That's just confusion, right? That's someone that I have no boundaries. There are people like that, by the way. There are people like that there's no boundaries. So when they'll walk into your house, open your fridge, and start taking stuff out, like they don't, not because they're a bad person, not because they're trying to steal your food. You could do it in their home too. They have no boundaries. They don't live like, in boxes. That's not how they live. So that's why the Mishnah says it's an ignorant person. It's an Am Haaretz. If you don't know what's yours, what's mine, that's not a healthy, normal way of living. That's an Am Haaretz. One who says what's mine is yours and what's yours is yours that's righteous, right? He's giving. What's mine is yours. You need something, even though I have it, take it, it's yours. And what you have, keep. That's a righteous person. And someone who says what's yours, I'm going to take from me, and what's mine, I'm going to keep for me, is obviously a very selfish, a narcissistic kind of person also, correct? Okay, so we have these 4 character traits. And what we want to understand is, what does it mean when it says that some people say that a person who seemingly is just following the law, he's just acting in a normal way, by keeping what's his, and keeping what's yours is yours. I'm not stealing from you. I'm not taking your stuff. I just don't want you taking my stuff. Is that so bad? Seemingly, it's not so bad, right? You get yours, I get mine, and we all live happily ever after. Yesh omrim, some people say this is the attribute of Sedom. So there is a commentary. So the Rebbe explains first that what is Pirkei Avot dealing with? Pirkei Avot is the law, or Pirkei Avot, ethics of our fathers, is going beyond the letter of the law, how to live a more ethical, moral life. Pirkei Avot it's just the law, or it's beyond the law. It's beyond the law. We're told that the entire book, you have 60 books of Mishnah. 60 books. 59 of them are the letter of the law. This is how much food you got to eat on a Passover. This is how much charity to give. This is how much, how to put on tefillin, how to do this, how to do that, right? One volume is ethics. Ethics is not a legal requirement. Ethics is about choosing how to live in a more meaningful, ethical, proper way. So by the letter of the law, if you keep what's yours for yourself and don't touch someone else's stuff, legally, nothing wrong. But morally, ethically, by the standards of the words of Chasidus, of the Mils of the Chasidus, which means the words of righteousness that are described to us in ethics of our fathers, you're not a good person. Fine. Rabbi Avadia Bartanura explains, Yesh Omer. What's Yesh Omer? Some people say. Notice the language. It doesn't say some people don't give. It says they say they won't give. Look at the Mishnah carefully. Yesh Omrim, they say that what's yours is yours and what's mine is mine. Now, when push comes to shove and you ask them for help, they'll give. They'll give charity. When there's a campaign, they'll donate. When someone asks for help, they'll help them. But when they do it, what do they feel inside? What are they saying to themselves as they're helping? What are they saying to themselves? You ever you ever see someone who's helping, and as they're helping, maybe you guys have never experienced this. Like, why am I doing this for this guy? Why did he ask me? I can't say no. I'm too nice. I'm a sucker. I'm a loser that I said yes. I should have said no. You ever, God forbid, no one in this room ever did it. And none of you watching me online ever did this because you're all holy, righteous people. But there are such people in the universe that will do nice things and they'll act in a generous way and they'll give money and they'll give their time and they'll volunteer. But when they do it, they're regretting it. So they do kindness, but in their minds, they think selfishness. Right? They say, what's mine is mine. Why do I have to give it to him? Why am I always a sucker that gets asked to help out? Why am I always one that has to donate? It's mine. Now, they're nice, or they have guilt. You know, some Jews, I've met a few Jews with guilt, or social pressure, or whatever the reason is why they said yes. But even though they're acting in a generous way, inside they're not feeling it. So what Pirkei Avos is telling us is that what's important is not just what a person does, but what's important is what a person says or thinks. Because if you don't give charity, then you're already violating the law. Then you're already not by ethics. Then you got to learn how to be a better person. We're talking over here about someone that's giving charity, but internally, emotionally, they haven't yet come to the recognition that whatever I have is to help somebody else. They think, why do I have what I have? Because God gave it to me. It's mine. I don't have to share it with you. Okay, you want me to be nice and do something extra kind? I'll share a little bit with you. But that's because I'm a kind person. Not because I don't have to. It's mine. The moment you say what's mine is mine, you've already started to enter Sedom territory. You already started to enter dangerous lands where you start thinking of that which you have as yours. Instead, what should a person think? What I have was given to me by God as a loan or as an investment, as his banker to see what would I do with the gifts and the money or the things that God gives me. So really, the Jewish perspective on what God gives us is that what I have is from God. The Sedom mentality is not that it's evil. It's just a certain selfishness that if I have it, it's because it's mine. And now that it's mine, it should stay mine. And even if they act differently, that's what they think in their minds. Meaning Judaism is not only asking for charitable actions, it's asking for a generous spirit, a charitable insight, that your heart and soul should feel a desire to love and to share and to be kind. And I accept and I acknowledge that that's easier said than done, especially for some people who are naturally more possessive and naturally more, take care of their belongings. And we want to feel that what we have is like, it's mine. I want to keep it. I want to hold on to it. And it takes a lot of work to have that mindset that Chassidus especially teaches us to understand that what I have is not for me. So as a deposit to me to be used for good. Yes.
I understand how some people can think that way, but how can a whole city, or 5 cities.
Oh, very good question. So the question is, good evening, everyone watching. So that was a very good question. Is if one person is selfish, okay, I understand, but the whole city is selfish. So how does that happen? How does that happen? Because here I come to the next. This is what I want to say about another explanation, another commentary that will answer exactly your question. What is Yesh Omrim? Zumidasim. Some say this is the midah, the attribute of Sedom. If others say, where the attribute, your selfishness becomes a value that you start speaking to others. And you start telling people, I don't have to give it, it's mine. And you start creating a culture of not giving. In healthy communities, it was called a culture of philanthropy, a culture of giving. The Jewish community has a culture of giving. Other communities don't have that kind of culture. Culturally, they're not as giving. Partly why? Because people say to each other, what's mine is mine, and what's yours is yours. I don't want yours. And I don't want to give you what's mine. So what happens is, and this is going to answer your question, a person becomes possessive over their belongings. And that possessiveness, that feeling that mine is mine because I worked for it, I earned it, I deserve it, means that I'm not going to share it because it's all mine. And that leads to a sense of selfishness where I stop acknowledging and recognizing the people around me. And then what happens? The people around me start acting the same way. Human nature that we reflect the people around us. That's why it's good for a righteous person, good for his neighbor. Woe to the wicked, woe to his neighbor. And if I look at you and I interact with you in a very keep your distance, I'm not sharing mine with you, and I don't expect you to share with me, then guess what? You're going to start thinking that way, and you're not going to share with me, and you're not going to share with her or with Adam, right? And then until eventually that becomes the cultural norm. And what happened in the city of Sedom is they were very wealthy. They were very blessed. They were gifted by God with tremendous blessings. You know what happened? They became possessive over their blessings. They became very controlling. They became control freaks. And from there became a selfishness where they became convinced that someone trying to take my stuff is a threat to me. It's mine. You want to be a beggar? You want to be a poor person coming through my town, taking my food for free? I'm not going to allow that. That's a threat to my economic safety. And the more people that bought into this idea, they became public leaders and politicians and the rulers of the town, and they started passing laws. And the law said, don't allow people into the town that will threaten your economic safety. Don't allow people in that will take your food for free because it's yours. And their mind, they were justified because what's mine is mine. And the whole beginning of the selfishness, the whole selfishness of the people of Sedom became so self-centered, they became oblivious to the people around them. Oblivious. To the point that if a poor person came in, they were unable to see the suffering of the poor person. All they could see was their own threat to their own greatness, to their own safety. I'm reminded of a beautiful story, but I'm not going to say it right now because I have other stories I want to share. But the point is, the beginning of the attribute of Sedom began with their wealth. With their wealth. Their wealth. They recognized that they were rich. And this is what the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos is telling us. Because they became afraid to share that, and they began to say, what's mine is mine, that sense of what mine is mine led to a sense of you are a threat to what's mine, and therefore I'm justified legally in fighting you and damaging you and stopping you from stealing what's mine. And they became so convinced of the righteousness of their ways until they were proud to have a legal system that penalized the victim, to have a legal system that punished the poor. That was their legal system. And then in their mind, they justified it.
You argue that where they went wrong is they forgot about God.
100%. They forgot about God. That's exactly what I'm saying. They began to think that what they have is theirs. They forgot that it came from God. If they would know that it came from God, they would have treated it very differently. I heard it was a great example that when I sit at the table, someone passes you a plate of chicken, or you get the big platter of chicken. What are you going to do with the whole platter of chicken? Eat the whole platter? No, you take off one piece and then pass it down. And so too, when God gives you a big platter of wealth, what are you meant to do with all that wealth? Hold on to it? And maybe if I'm feeling really nice, He'll give you one piece of chicken from the platter. No, take what you need. God says, here's all the money. When you get past the platter, you take off however much you're going to eat, and you pass the rest around. And that has to be our mindset. When God gives us money, the money we have is meant for us to share it, not to become selfish. I have stories here, but I'm thinking of a better story. Should I say, I'll tell you the story. I'm not sure which story to say anymore. Okay, I'll tell you. Let's stick on to I'll tell you afterwards another story. There's a beautiful story of two brothers. Elimelech. No, I'll just say the story 1 second. That's what I'm feeling. I'll tell you a good story. I've said it before. I've said it many times, but it's a beautiful story. It's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful story. Isn't it a beautiful story? There was a good man who lived in town. A generous person, not very wealthy, but he was a very, very generous person. And any poor person who would come to his house, they knew they would get a good meal, a hot meal, and not just that, they would get a listening ear that would help them, that would listen to them and give them comfort. It's going to be okay, bless them, help them. And everyone left with a gift, some money. He wasn't rich, but he gave something to everyone. One day, his Rebbe came to town, collecting for a poor family, whatever it was, for a woman in need. Comes to visit this member of his, this chassid, and he sees the hospitality. He sees the way he welcomes everyone in, how everyone's welcome to sit by the table, everyone is treated with dignity and with respect. He listens to every poor person as if they're important. Very often we see a poor person like attempted to discredit them, like you're a nundik, you're whatever, you're a shlamazel, you're wasting my time. I'll help you, but don't waste my time, He sees the way he treats everyone with dignity and respect, and he's so kind. And so he gives this person a bracha, a blessing. So I bless you to become very, very wealthy. That was the bracha of this Rebbe, of this tzaddik to this man. What happened? The Rebbe's blessing came true. And very quickly, this generous, kind person went from being just decent to becoming the wealthiest man in town. The blessings came true. Everything he touched turned to gold. Now, the wealthiest man in town can't live in a regular little home. He needs a big home. So he built a big, beautiful home in the middle of the town. But now already building a big, beautiful home, you don't want poor people walking through and getting the carpets dirty. When your home was a simple home, an old home, whatever. Now you put in very, very fancy floors, very fancy furniture, beautiful carpet. Those is carpet was like a luxury. Have people coming in, ruining the beauty and the art and the paintings and the couch. He said, no more poor people eating in his home. He'll still give charity, but no poor people coming in and ruining the home. And by now already, everyone knew he's a rich man. A lot of people coming for charity. So he sets up a butler. A lot of rich people have their person in charge of giving their charity for them. So he sets somebody up. Any poor person knocks on the door. You give them 100 ruble and you send them away. Anyway, and that's it. No more poor people in his home. No more talking to him. He's busy with his business. This Rebbe comes back to town a few years later. And he hears that his former student has become very, very successful. He comes, he sees this they built a big, beautiful house. He sees that his blessing came true. So Baruch Hashem, he needed money to collect for captives that had been arrested and had to be freed from prison. He's sure that this rich student of his is going to give him a very, very nice donation. He knocks on the door, and the butler sees a rabbi standing there, says, here's your $100, have a nice day. He says, no. I don't need $100. I need to speak to the master of the house. The butler says, I'm on very strict orders that no one's allowed to enter the house. We don't allow poor people and visitors into the home. This is for the family. You can't get in. Here's your $100. The Rebbe starts arguing back and forth, demands it, go. I'm not taking $100. I need to see your boss. I need to see the owner of the home. But the butler's on strict orders. No one's allowed in. So he's back and forth. He says, I'm not leaving until you go call the owner. And enough of a commotion was made, or maybe eventually the butler gave in. He goes to tell the boss that this Rebbe is waiting to see him. Of course, the former student of the Rebbe, hears that his teacher has come to visit. Of course, he goes running to the front door. Says, Rebbe, you should have told me you're coming. I would have given you a royal entrance. I'm sorry what happened with the door. Come in. Let me give you a tour of my house. And this rich man starts to give the Rebbe a tour of the mansion he built. Here is the imported bronze from Italy. And here I have my beautiful, luxury mirror. And here I have my chandelier. And the Rebbe is watching how this guy is so proudly showing off all the things in his home. And the Rebbe sees that the former student that had been so good-hearted, so generous, so caring and sensitive to the poor people, all he cared now about was money. So what does he do? He said, how am I going to break through to him? So he says to his student, come with me. And they go to the window, big window in the dining room overlooking the main street of the city. It's in the center of town. He says, tell me, what do you see out the window? What do you see? He opens the window. He's looking out on the street. Says, there, I see Yenta the matchmaker. And I see Chaim, he's the milkman. And the Rebbe says, tell me about Chaim the milkman. Oh, Chaim, he's a widow. His wife passed away. He works very hard. And who is that lady? Oh, her. She's never got married. She's all alone. Who is that guy? Oh, yeah, 6 kids, and they're all poor. And he's a tailor, and one of the kids is very, very sick. And he starts describing each person. This one has a sick child at home. This one is a widow. This one is struggling. He's describing all the people in the town that are walking through. Then he says to the rich man, come with me. He goes in the dining room. There's a big, big mirror surrounded by a big, beautiful frame, a big mirror. He says, look at me. Now what do you see? Looking in the mirror. Says, I see me. I see myself in the mirror. So Rebbe says, I'm very confused. That was glass, and this is glass. So how come when you looked out of that glass, you saw Yenta the matchmaker and Chaim the tailor and Beryl the shoemaker and whatever, and you saw the kids and the one that's sick and the one that broke their leg and the one that needs a job. You saw all the people in the town. And when you look through this piece of glass, all you see is yourself. You don't see anybody else. What's the difference? They're both glass. Right? They're both glass. So this man says to the Rebbe, you don't understand. This glass is clear. There's nothing else but glass. The glass in the mirror has silver behind the glass, so that when you look through the glass, what you see is your reflection on the silver. So we said, aha, so the silver makes it that you can't see beyond yourself. And all of a sudden, it hit him like a dagger, what the Rebbe was saying. Before he had all that wealth and all that silver, he was able to see the people around him. He was able to be emotionally in touch, to feel the needs, to feel their suffering, to feel their pain, to be with them. But then he got the silver, and all he could see was himself. He said, Rebbe, you're right. You're right. I built a big, beautiful home, and I don't let anybody in. I lost the ability to see the people around me. So he read sent that word that tomorrow night they're making a big dinner for everyone in the town. The next night, the whole town comes. The big man, the rich man is making a big dinner. Everyone comes into his house, his big, beautiful house. They come in with the dirty shoes, with the whole mess. He serves a beautiful dinner to everyone. And he gets up and he tells everyone, I want you to know, I realized I made a big mistake. I became very self-centered with my wealth that God blessed me with. As a reminder to myself to never let my silver block my ability to see past myself. I had to see someone else. In front of the whole crowd, he went to the back of the mirror, took a knife, and scraped off some of the silver in the back of the corner of the mirror. That one corner of the mirror should always be clear glass to remind him to never let the silver prevent him from seeing other people. This is a beautiful story that encapsulates exactly what happened to the people of Sedom. The people of Sedom, what happened to them? They became wealthy, became successful, they became sophisticated, they became cultured, they became rich. And said, we can't allow what we have to be attacked and to be threatened by others coming to steal what we have from us. And therefore, they decided they have to protect themselves. What's mine is mine. Yours is yours. That is the attribute of Sedom. That's a very, very dangerous thing for a person to have. I'll just tell you, in brief, that those are a very negative trait to have. The day will come, Mashiach will come, and the prophet Yecheskel tells us as follows. Look at verse number 5, chapter 16 of the book of Ezekiel, verse 53, where Ezekiel tells us, the day will come, I will restore the captivity of Sedom and her daughters, and the captivity of Shamron and her daughters, and I will restore your captivity in their midst. Which means as follows. I want to end up with something positive from Chassidus. Even though Sedom was a wicked city that had to be destroyed, nevertheless, in Chassidus it tells us that Sedom is a manifestation of the world of Tohu, of a world of tremendous energy, which is greatness, but has no ability to integrate with others. I'm simplifying to make it understandable, relevant to us. Tohu is all about, I am a certain character trait. I'm the character trait of chesed, of kindness. I can't handle anybody else but me. And the other emotions of the same world of Tohu, each felt their own existence in all of their intensity, and they each felt the other to be a threat to them. So you know what happened to this world called Tohu, the spiritual Kabbalistic world? It broke. It was destroyed. Much like the city of Sedom was destroyed. The great energy in wealth, the great potential of goodness that this city could have done, they didn't utilize it. They didn't maximize it. They didn't use it out. Instead, they became destructive by their selfishness, by their inability to see anybody else but themselves. However, says Chassidus, that this single-mindedness of the people of Sedom that made them be destroyed could also become the ultimate rectification. There's no tikkun in this time, but we know that the city was overturned. Was overturned. For those who know Chassidus a little, it's the idea of hisabcha, of transformation. Not where you just break and you control a negative character trait, but where you transform a negative character trait into a positive character trait, which means that the energy of Sedom, the wealth of Sedom, will be transformed. When Mashiach comes into the ultimate of generosity, a charity, a charitable behavior of complete charity. And that's what the verse means when it says, I will restore the captivity of Sedom and her daughters, and I will restore your captivity in their midst, which means that we will become the best hosts, the most generous hosts. I'll show you what you think you're a generous host. I'm going to show you what a generous host is. We're going to have an intensity of Sedom in giving to others, in recognizing that what I have is for somebody else. Anyway, so what's the lesson for us? The lesson for us is that we all have a part of Avraham inside us. We're all children of Avraham, so we all have a natural desire to be kind. And sadly, we also have a Sedom inside us. We have a certain human beings by nature are selfish. That's the way we were born. We were born with a certain selfish tendency. Little child is hungry. They don't care if you're tired, if you're sleeping, if you're on a business phone call. They don't care. They want food. They want it now, right? They're selfish. That's the way God made us. And the challenge is to take the energy, the intensity of the selfishness of Sedom, of the desire for money, which is a very strong desire represented by Sedom, and not to destroy it, but to retrain it, to hire Avraham, the kind guy inside us, to be like the manager and the dictator of Sedom, and to use this intensity to show tremendous kindness, tremendous charity, tremendous selflessness. Sedom was all about being selfish, about taking what's mine for me, not giving any of it to you, in fact, being threatened by your existence, because I want all of mine for me, and to become the exact opposite, to be totally selfless, where whatever I have, I need a little bit to eat, but it's not for me. Whatever I have, everything I have is only for you. So God give me a platter of all these good things. I'll take what I need, and I'm going to give the rest. That's the attitude. That's the attitude we need to have. And without God willing, very soon we'll come to the time when Mashiach comes, when the anti-Sedom, so to say, where Sedom is rejuvenated in a spiritual way with an intensity of whatever is mine is all for you. Okay, good night, my friends. And I think next week we'll talk about the wife of Lot, and we'll continue this discussion a little more, God willing. Okay? God bless you all. Laila Tova, see who's watching. Thank you, Joseph. And thank you, Stephanie. Shalom to you. And Michael is replying, yes. Okay. Artil Shalom from the Philippines. Okay, wow. We have people from the Philippines watching. We have someone told me they're watching before from I forgot, I can't find it anymore now. Shalan Kun, I don't know what that is. And then we have someone watching from Bangladesh. Look at that. And the Sahin alone. Okay. Welcome. Glad you're watching. By the way, tomorrow night, 7 o'clock, sushi and soup will not be on Facebook. It'll be on Zoom. If you want to join, send me a message or send me an email. Go to mychabadcenter.org/JLI. I'll send out the Zoom link for free if you want to try tomorrow's class. Email rabbi@mychabadcenter.org or go to mychabadcenter.org/JLI and you can join. What will be an amazing class tomorrow night. Good night, Cheryl. Good night, Carmen. I hope you enjoy. Good night, Mindy. Laila Tov to you. Thank you, Shira. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thank you, Jessica. Laila Tov. Good night. Thank you all. We'll see you B'ezrat Hashem tomorrow night. Thank you, Joe Rolinsky. Thank you, Art Dubin. Thank you, Jason Illig. Thank you, Joe. Thank you all. Let me see if I can comment and put the. Hold on. Let's see if I can comment. If you're going to join tomorrow's JLI class on the Kabbalah of meaning, I don't know how to. Okay, anyway, mychabadcenter.org/JLI or rabbi@mychabadcenter.org. Laila Tov, my friends, or send me a Facebook message. Carmen, if you want to join, again, go to, let me finish this, mychabadcenter.org. I can tape it onto my personal page, mychabad. I'll see you tomorrow night. Hope you enjoyed. See you tomorrow, 7 o'clock. If you send me an email or if you send it on the website, and then I'll send you the free link for tomorrow's class if you want to join. And if you need a scholarship, I should just say, if anyone needs a scholarship, we have scholarships available. Okay. Good night, my friends. I just finished class now. Give you like 5 minutes if you want.